So you've invited me to speak here, and I'm being heckled nonstop. And I'm just asking for an administrator to sign it.
That's an
Well, the woman in the middle of that chaos is Tyrion Steinbach, the Associate Dean of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion at Stanford Law School, who joined students in taunting a conservative judge, Kyle Duncan, last week. The school apologized to Judge Duncan for the heckling, but did not discipline Steinbach at all. Now some students say the school did not go far enough standing up for free speech, and they are demanding Steinbach lose her job. Several students writing a piece in the Stanford Review. Here's a quote. Fire Tyrion Steinbach, explaining the biggest perpetrator of the incident was not the group of students, but the Stanford administrator who actively encouraged students to go against Stanford's free speech policy. If these law students are to be trained for bench and bar, it certainly should be with a deep respect for the bedrock principle of free speech. Jerry, I see you leaning in.
I'm sorry. This is hysterical. These are your future attorneys. This is the law force, this is the workforce of tomorrow. And they're little scaredy cats all the time. I mean, really, is this where we're going? I think it's astonishing. And I just can't imagine how Stanford has a lot of problems. A lot of people have come out of Stanford in the last few years that have created big issues for this country, and it's no surprise this is happening there.
Jake, I'm going to read what Judge Duncan wrote, and it poses an interesting question. Here's the quote. The elites set the tone of our society, like it or not. The law students we graduate from Stanford, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, and the like are the ones who inevitably will be occupying the commanding heights of government, academia, big business, philanthropy, and so on. So what they think is acceptable behavior matters immensely. What if in 10 or 20 years' time, this kind of behavior is the norm in the courtroom, the firm, the boardroom? Just to piggyback on what Jerry was just saying.
So I like Judge Duncan, okay? And his initial response was not so clean cut. You know, he referred to the student's behavior with an expletive, talking to a reporter, which I thought was great. I love that attitude. He called for mass firings at Stanford. You know, like I want to see more of that, you know, from these conservative judges. I think, you know, Judge Duncan might be considered for a Supreme Court appointment, you know, if it were me making the decision.
If they let him speak.
Well, exactly, because that's how you deal with these people. You don't coddle them. You don't say, well, you know, I really appreciate you speaking your truth and, you know, thank you for sharing your concerns. No. I think you should shut up. I don't think you should be admitted to the bar in California. And I think every administrator who allowed this at Stanford should be fired. That's how you handle this. I admire Judge Duncan for his take.
Kayleigh, since you went to law school, what has changed in a way that just dialoguing now is not allowed?
What's changed is our society coddles anyone who decides they're a victim. I saw it on my law school campus. You're a victim, all of a sudden we'll coddle you. As we saw in this case with this dean who coddled these kids. And not only that, Stanford didn't punish the dean. They said if you have a problem and you were affected by this event being canceled, go to this dean and she'll counsel you. So they're encouraging kids to go to her. As Jonathan Turley said, it is akin to the Oscars telling Chris Rock that Will Smith is available as an emotional support coach. Okay? It's crazy. But, you know, it's so sad. Because one of the most beautiful parts of Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation was her introductory speech. I was in the White House when she was doing it, and I remember hearing her say, I try to put myself in the mindset of the person I'm ruling against and think if this was my child that was being ruled against, maybe I wouldn't agree, but would I at least understand the judge? Do you think any of those students have ever asked themselves or tried to put themselves in the perspective of an alternate viewpoint and tried to understand how that alternate viewpoint came about? Absolutely not. They've lost all sense of critical thinking.
So one of the things I would question is whether or not they even know what they believe.
Good
or
question.
the reasons for believing it. So, Emily, I imagine a young grad, you going back to the courtroom for a day just to visit but fight a case, they would be squashed like a bug because, as Jerry said, they're not strong, dude.
Yeah, it's so disheartening, frankly. You know, I graduated law school in 2006, so you guys do the math. And the amount of hours I have spent in courtrooms with serious topics, with criminal topics, where sentencings were many years. where families were sobbing, where you watch them having undergone trauma that no amount of conviction can ever restore. And then it's reduced to a laughingstock. Since I went to law school, we've now discarded and obliterated the admissions process, the academic rigor during school. We've obliterated free speech. We've obliterated diversity of thought. We've obliterated probably the bar exam itself. So I am deeply fearful for all of those Americans who need an ally, who need an advocate in the way of counsel and an attorney moving forward with something that matters to them, which is anything in a court of law, because it's all important, whether it's financial or criminal or the like.
Absolutely.
And these snowflakes that are being bred and churned out, they are ill-prepared for anything, and the biggest losers will be the rest of us. And I think it is absolutely laughable. The one thing that's laughable to me is that the chief of diversity, inclusion, and equity demonstrates anything but in her zero tolerance for someone that has a different viewpoint than her.
Just let me add, Stanford is where Sam Bankman-Fried came from. Remember, his mom and dad teach there. That is the environment he came out of. You can expect more of that kind of thing.
Wow. Talk about a snowflake. More than what's falling in Massachusetts right now.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.